And good evening, baseball fans. Hello, Red Sox fans. Welcome to episode 20 of the BLEAV in Red Sox podcast. I appreciate you all stopping by on your Monday night. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Hope everyone had a good start to their week. And, I got a hurricane coming here in Florida, so I gotta get out of here soon and go get some water and some snacks from the store. I gotta get all hunkered down over here, but that will not stop me from doing episode 20 of the Red Sox podcast. And I'm quite excited because we have a special guest for tonight. Our new co-host is arriving tonight, and we're going to be talking about what exactly happened with the 2022 Red Sox. A very disappointing season. The past 4 games, obviously, with the Yankees. It's never a good feeling to be swept by the Yankees, but what can you do? A very disappointing season indeed. And we're going to break it down tonight. We're going to go over everything. We're going to talk about what exactly we think went wrong with the Red Sox this year. And introducing the new co-host for the BLEAV in Red Sox podcast. It is an honor and a privilege. Ellis Burks, how are you doing, my friend? Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks to be on. Hey, hi, everyone. Sorry, I just left the gym. I have my workout attire on, but we're all.
I like it. I like it. You got to get the pump. You got to get everything going. You got to get ready for the show, man. That's what I like to see. I actually, what was I doing? I was squatting the other day and completely just strained my adductor, my inner thigh. So I'm having a little trouble walking at the moment. So you're doing better than me getting into the gym. So I did not go to the gym today. So. But that will not stop us from doing the podcast tonight. But Ellis, I just want to thank you for coming on to the show and taking your time. And obviously, you had an awesome career.
Thank you.
Starting off your career with the Red Sox. It was an honor for me. In 2004, 2003 personally was really when I dove into the Red Sox on a daily basis. 2002 started kind of dabbling in it. I was more playing baseball when I was a kid, but once I realized I was not a future major leaguer, that's when I decided to focus on watching the Red Sox. But 2003, that's when I really dove in. The playoffs that year just got me hooked completely. And then 2004, ending your career with the Red Sox. Before we kind of get into everything, how was that, ending your career with the Red Sox, especially where it all started? What was that experience like for you that year?
Well, you know what, to start my career in Boston and of course to end it in Boston was amazing to me. I mean, I always wanted to go back to Boston in some capacity and then got that opportunity again in 2004. And what a year that was. We started off slow, picked it up down the middle. And I tell you what, that ending was amazing. People are never going to forget about that. That was something, 86 years in the waiting,
Yeah. I mean, I honestly, still think back to that year. And, there are times where I'm like, was that season even real? Was it like, it almost seemed fake, almost like how ridiculous, like everything got put together, I woke
up the next day, Robbie. Yeah. I woke up the next day saying, did I dream that? Did we really win? It was crazy. Yeah, it was surreal.
Yeah. I'm 14 years old at the time. I'm in high school, and everyone, I went to school down south in Florida, so I was the only Red Sox fan at my high school. So I was always known as the guy who was always wearing his Red Sox shirts and jerseys and whatnot to school. And that was a good day at school that day. I remember that.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, man, and you just had, not just a really awesome stint with the Red Sox to start things off. You also had just a lot of success in your career. I'm actually looking at some of your numbers right now on Fangraphs. Your best statistical season came in 1996 with the Colorado Rockies. You were fantastic that year, man. How was that year for you, just personally?
From the beginning, it was just something that, everything was going right.
Yeah.
From the first game, at the All-Star game, then, of course, to finish the season there, you're talking about average, home runs, RBIs, on-base defense, everything. It's
stolen bases.
You want to bottle that up.
Yeah.
And try to get that every year, but obviously you can't. But it was just one of those years, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. And it's funny because I always remember you with the Red Sox. It's funny. I had completely even forgotten that you went to the Giants at one point. You actually had a really good season with the Giants in the year 2000. That was a really good year for you. And
Yeah.
you had a lot of success in your career, man. And
Thank you.
Got to say, it's an honor to have you on here. But we're here today to talk about the Red Sox this year.
Let's talk about it.
Let's get into it, and I guess just real quick, what are your thoughts? Just, obviously a disappointing year, but if you were to just kind of sound off for a little bit, what do you think of everything going on this year?
Well, after last season, it was a great season. It ended, in a tough way, against Houston. But I tell you what, it was a lot of fun last year. And, in the off season, you're expecting a lot of big deals to be made just to build on the success that they had in the prior year. And on paper, everything looked good. And it's just, from the beginning of the season, it was just one of those things, man. It just inconsistency up and down throughout the season, very streaky throughout. But, you can't really put your finger on it. There's a lot of ways a lot of the things you can point at. Let me just put it like that. Injuries, of course, the bullpen, starting rotation. There's a lot of areas you can look at and say, okay, they have to get better in some sense.
Yeah. And I think, we'll dive into everything. And I do think, one thing I'm seeing Chaim Bloom, I feel like he's getting a little bit of flack lately. And, you could point to a lot of different things, off-season moves, lack of deadline moves. Well, he made some moves, but not really like the kind of moves you would think. But one thing I will, give him credit for, he came into Boston, he had a plan. This is a guy, he came in with a direction that he wanted to bring this organization. He's been on the record saying he wants an organization like the Dodgers, like the Tampa Bay Rays, where an organization that can just keep churning talent. But in the process, do you feel like even with that direction, did you find it to be a bit frustrating this year, from just a personal standpoint, or kind of what were your thoughts on just, the transactional moves made by Bloom this year?
I thought they were great moves, just like everyone else. I mean, like I said, you look at on paper, it looked like a great team at that time. Mm-hmm. Which it was. It's just a matter of if things could have went bad, it did go bad this year. With injuries, with Chris Sale, the expectation of Chris Sale coming back. He came back for one or two starts, and then the freaky line drive up the middle broke his pinky. And you're still hoping that he would come back in 4 weeks or 6 weeks, whatever the case might be. And then he had the other injury with the bike accident. So, it's just the little things that went on throughout the season. Yeah. And, Chaim Bloom had a plan. I mean, the plan was, it was working. It was in progress. It was just one of those things that if it could have went wrong, it did go wrong.
Right. Right. I think he did the right, because at the end of the day, he is trying to still build up that farm. And I definitely respect that, because you need to do that. And I liked the moves, that they made at the deadline. I am seeing, criticism from fans, because obviously you want to see, some moves. You want to see like those big juicy trades for like a Juan Soto, you know what I mean? But that's not the direction this organization's trying to go.
And you don't want to deplete your minor league system for a guy like Soto.
Right. And to be honest, they would have had to get rid of everyone to get him. And who knows if even the Nationals would have even liked that package over the Padres package, So it was, there would have been no point to get rid of guys like a Marcelo Mayer or Tristan Cassis or a Brian Bale, especially when you were at a 500, record around that time. And there's really no reason to kind of just go for it at that point. You can even go back to the offseason when they traded Hunter Renfroe, brought in, I love Jackie Bradley Jr., but it was considered a bad contract at the time. But you brought in a couple of nice pieces, and Alex Benelis and David Hamilton, nice, solid guys for the organization, for depth later on. And you did the same thing with Christian Vasquez this year, trading him to the Astros. You're bringing in a couple of really good young pieces from the Astros organization, and, guys that can help out down the road. But he still managed to somehow put these major league players in place, bringing in Eric Hosmer. While granted, that might not be everyone's favorite player, especially in San Diego, but, he did, bring in like a Tommy Pham. I actually really like the Reese McGuire move. This is a guy that you can now have for the next few years. And Hey, just hit a home run the other night, but really good on the defensive side. Like you said, I think it was sometimes it's just not going to work out. Sometimes you can put all the pieces, you can put all the right ingredients, and it just doesn't work sometimes. And I feel like that really was what it was. If we were to kind of just dive in, to what we think went wrong, let's start off with the offseason. You brought in a Trevor Story, and we'll talk about injuries here in a second. So I'll talk about that in just a little bit. But you did bring in a Trevor Story. I love that signing. Some criticisms I did see from the offseason were not bringing in enough top level pitching. You basically replaced Eduardo Rodriguez with Michael Wacha, Rich Hill, James Paxton, who didn't pitch. And then you brought in Jackie Bradley Jr. with a couple of minor leaguers. You made a couple of minor league signings like a Rob Refsnyder. But I feel like the offseason it drew some criticism a little bit. Do you feel like the Red Sox could have done more in the offseason, or what were your thoughts going back to that point?
Well, I love the Michael Wacha deal.
I do.
Anytime you can get a guy like that who has the experience that he has, and of course, the leadership that he has not only on the field but in the clubhouse as well. You bring him in, 10-1, 11-1, whatever the case may be right now. The guy's been phenomenal. Yeah. Okay. There's been other moves that were made, of course, getting rid of Kyle Schwarber, letting him, you didn't get rid of him, he signed.
You let him go, basically.
Yeah, basically. A guy like that, you can't 40 home runs. I mean, wow.
Tough.
That's a tough loss right there.
Yeah.
And then, of course, what was the went to Milwaukee? Jeez.
Renfroe.
Yeah.
That was a tough one.
That was a tough one to go right there. I mean, the guy, he had an unbelievable season, a bounce back year for him.
Yeah.
Just one of those things. And Fenway Park will bring that out of you. I'm going to tell you, crowds every day, just that environment, that whole scene, you're going to play well because you're playing in front of 30,000 every night, 40,000 every night. So, you got to expect that. But, like we said, it was just a lot of things that didn't go right for the Sox. The power wasn't there. A lot of guys, the numbers were down this season. Yeah. I mean, it's just everything that, like I said, everything that went wrong.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the offense, but real quick before we really dive into it, I forgot to go over today's sponsors. We have to go over today's sponsors. Everyone, don't forget, sponsoring today's show is Bet Online. Use the code BLEAV50, BLEAV 50, and you'll get a 50% welcome bonus. If you're into the sports betting game, absolutely go check out Bet Online. You can use it for Major League Baseball, NFL, MMA. I think basketball is going to be starting up soon, so definitely go check out Bet Online. Again, use the code BLEAV50. You get a 50% welcome bonus. And don't forget, on my channel, we are partners with SeatGeek. Use my code HYDE. You get $20 off your first purchase. And hey, we got, I think, 10 more days of season left. So you got some time to use the code. And also, we do have a partnership with Prize Picks. If you're into the sports betting game, like I was mentioning with Bet Online, and you're maybe getting a little tired of FanDuel, DraftKings, go check out Prize Picks. You play the over-unders instead of other players, and use my code GINGER. You get a 100% deposit match. So let's get into the offense. I think that's a nice little segue that we made. Just some numbers. Let me actually share the screen here. I don't use StreamYard all that much, so let me see if I can do it real quick. Here we go. So if we go take a look here at Fangraphs, everyone on my channel knows how much I love me some Fangraphs. So the Red Sox this year, when you take a look at WRC Plus, which is weighted runs created plus, it takes into account basically everything you do on the offensive side: singles, doubles, triples, walks, homers, everything. And it kind of just puts it all into one little formula and spits out a number, and that's how many runs that player or team is worth. So the Red Sox this year, 13th overall, middle of the road, a 102 WRC plus, not terrible, but it's not amazing by any means, pretty middle of the road. And it's funny when you go look at the Red Sox last year, a much better offense. When we take a look at 2021, they were 6th overall when it came to the offense last year. And like you mentioned, the Red Sox this year, it really seemed like they lacked that power. It really seemed like they lacked that, how do I put it, depth in the lineup. You had Xander Bogaerts and Rafael Devers really coming through this year. But it felt like that's really all there was when it came to guys that could do some damage. Like you mentioned, Renfroe last year. You had Schwarber last year. Guys that extended that lineup. Do you feel like that was kind of just a big issue with the Red Sox this year, just a lack of extension in that lineup?
Yeah, when Kyle Schwarber came over, he brought not only that experience, but he also brought the patience at the plate. I mean, this guy was showing the other guys how to be more patient at the plate. Get your walks, but look for that heater, look for that fastball. And I tell you what, they picked up on a lot of things that he was doing, and they had a lot of success. So when you lose a guy like that, of course, you had J.D. Martinez, you had Xander, you had Rafi Devers, and Trevor Story. But with Trevor, he had to come into a whole new league.
Yeah.
Right? It's so tough to change leagues. So now you have to get used to new pitchers, this and that. You don't see those guys all the time. Like, it might be a more balanced schedule next year because you're not going to play the same teams in your league or in your division 18, 19 times.
Yeah.
It'd be a more balanced schedule. But that really hurt him early in the season. That's like spring training. You know how you go into spring training? You face a starting pitcher for 3 innings, then you face every other pitcher out of the pen that you've never seen before. So you have no idea what this guy has. And that's what he was dealing with throughout the season.
Right.
But, as far as the overall numbers, the Red Sox are a doubles hitting team this year.
Yeah.
They pretty much led the league in doubles. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the home run power, it was down.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, JD Martinez was a guy very uncharacteristic of JD Martinez. You're not really going to get those 2018 numbers like we had. What a great season that was. But, it felt like just something which just wasn't quite there with him. And, I've loved JD Martinez. I do feel like this will probably be the end of the road with him with the Red Sox, unless maybe they can come to some kind of a deal. But, you had Alex Verdugo, but that's not really like a power guy. That was more of like a table setter kind of a guy, or, a guy that, maybe 5th or 6th in the lineup. And then, Trevor Story was supposed to be that right-handed bat that replaced Hunter Renfroe. That was kind of the thinking behind it. You brought in Jackie Bradley Jr. to improve the defense out in right field, but unfortunately that offense just wasn't there with him, and you were hoping Trevor Story could bring in that offense. But with Trevor Story, an up and down year, hot, cold, injuries with him. He had the hairline fracture at one point, and that was just something where on paper, it looked like it could work, but it just didn't really come to fruition this year. There just wasn't really a whole lot, and you can even look at as good as Bogaerts has been. Not a lot of power from Bogaerts this year. The home runs were down. Very good slash line and everything. But the power was a little down with him. And Devers a little bit slightly. And I think he was hurt for
He was injured for a while as well.
Yeah. So, there just wasn't that thump in that lineup. Like last year, it felt like, it wasn't the do damage 2018 Red Sox, but it was something last year. You felt confident going into a game with that offense because you just had these power bats all over the place, guys that could do different things, hit for power, hit up the gaps, get on base, make things happen. And it just wasn't there. I also do want to point out one other thing. A lot of people I feel like might not pay full attention to this, and I actually want to get your thoughts on this as well. The Red Sox, when it came to base running this year, not great. 26 overall, a negative 10.5 base running here. Doesn't necessarily mean stolen bases. It's just, how well you're running the bases and how many runs you're created. To you, do you feel like that's something that gets overlooked a lot when it, just comes to just the game of baseball? We're always thinking bats and pitching, but, base running, what are your thoughts?
Well, when you're winning and you make some base running mistakes, no problem. They're going to overlook those. But when you're losing and you're struggling a little bit, that going first to third is really important. That getting picked off at second or third base or at first base, that's a big deal. Anytime that you make any kind of base running mistakes when you're struggling, when you're not having the success that you had in prior years, it's going to blow it up even more so.
Yeah, and honestly, I think the person that, I honestly could think maybe he might pull up this page I'm looking at and he could take a look at it, would be Alex Cora. I feel like maybe he takes that to heart a little bit. How could he improve his team? He's always trying to make the team better, obviously. And how could he improve in like just simple fundamental things like base running?
I'm going to tell you that, Alex Cora was one of those fundamental players. I mean,
Yeah.
he did everything right as a player. So his expectations for the club are extremely high. He expects them to do just as well. They had some mistakes this year throughout the season. There was a lot of base running mistakes and that cost a lot of runs, whatever the case may be. But yes, he takes that to heart. So he definitely will address that in the offseason.
Right. And then on the other side of the ball as well, believe it or not, the Red Sox this year were actually very poor defensively. They were actually doing okay in the first half. But when you look at just the overall defensive numbers here, 25th on the year in defense, that takes into account of all of the positions. And actually, the Red Sox outfield defense was not terrible this year. If we take a look here, defensive runs saved, not quite all that great. But when it came to UZR just making the routine play, they didn't rank necessarily bad. But overall, this team was just not very good defensively. And, I thought Rafael Devers had made a bit of a turn when it came to his defense with the Red Sox. But this year, not so much. If we go take a look here at when it comes to the overall third baseman, hold on one second here. Let me go to the qualified.
Well, Robbie,
so Rafael Devers.
When you're talking about 26th in the league in base running, okay, and then 25th in defense, that's showing you right there. There needs to be some improvement on both ends.
Right.
And both parts of that spectrum.
Yeah, absolutely. And Rafael Devers, he still not quite showing a lot of improvement at third. I mean, these are definitely better numbers than years prior, but still not fully quite there. When you look at, you're not going to be a guy like Brian Hayes or Nolan Arenado, but a lot of it's just, he's not quite the best defensive third baseman out there.
But I tell you what, he did improve this year opposed to last year.
Yes. Absolutely. He did. Absolutely.
Improvement.
So I think in the end, that's obviously not the reason why the Red Sox are that bad this year. But, when you're just kind of nitpicking and you're looking at all these little things, in the end, it just wasn't just a recipe for success this year. So pretty much, hold on one second. Let me get out of this here.
Sure.
But yeah, just a lot of things going wrong with the offense, running the bases, just fundamental things, playing defense. What would you like to see for the Red Sox? What would you like for them to do in the offseason? I know this is probably a whole nother episode, but if you real quick, what would you like for the Red Sox to do this offseason? If you're talking Xander Bogaerts, Rafael Devers,
you gotta keep the core. Those are two guys you have to find a way to keep both of those guys. Xander Bogaerts. The grass isn't always greener on the other side. You go out. There's a lot of good shortstops that are available, free agent wise or whatever the case may be. You got Turner in LA, of course. He's one of those guys, he's one of those phenomenal players. He can go either way. But I'll tell you what, Xander, his defense is a solid defense. He's not going to, wow you defensively, but he's going to make the plays.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he knows the Red Sox organization.
Yeah.
He's one of those players that's been around in Boston. He played. Everyone can't play in Boston. I'm going to tell you that right now. There's so many players that the Red Sox have gotten history-wise, gotten in the past that didn't work out in Boston, and that's just a given. Everyone can't play in New York City. Same thing. Yeah. But you have to be smart about who you get, who you bring over, make sure they're a good fit for the organization, for the city, for everything in the Boston, New England area.
Yeah.
And I think Xander Bogaerts has proven that over his years in Boston that he can play there. He here's a guy that's never got in any kind of trouble. You have to look at that part of it.
Yeah,
Nowadays,
absolutely.
with social media and everything else, this guy is squeaky clean, okay? And he does the job every day. He's an everyday guy you could throw out there.
Yeah.
Okay, same thing goes for Bogey. You have a guy like, Bogey, of course. Devers. Rafi goes out there. He just day in and day out, he has that swag about himself. Sometimes he gets a little too emotional.
Yeah.
Okay, but that comes with maturity.
Yeah, absolutely. Bogarts was the same way sometimes.
Exactly. But those are two core players that I think you have to keep.
Yeah. Homegrown talent. It's not. Yeah, absolutely. It will be interesting to see. And again, we got plenty more episodes to talk about this with the offseason coming up. But, Rafi Devers is in the same spot Mookie was in a few years ago, 1 year away from free agency, last year of arbitration, apart on a contract. It'll be interesting. Bloom did it.
See what he's doing over there in LA.
And it's funny because when they did and I'm not saying this is, I'm just I noticed these little things and it probably means nothing, but in that Jackie Bradley Jr. trade, they brought in Alex Benelis, who's a lefty power hitting third baseman. I'm just pointing that out. I don't know. I'm not saying he's going to take over third base next year, but Bloom operates in that way where and I agree with you. You need to analytics are not going to be pointing out how well a player can handle a city of Boston or everything, the intangibles. He really looks at those analytics. I'm starting to see some people out here when things are, and this is kind of everywhere you go, when things are going well, Chaim Bloom, these guys, they're geniuses. But when things are going bad, now you're like, oh, okay, now we're getting a little too much with all these numbers and everything. So I do think this is going to be a very big offseason for him, especially because this is kind of like you're almost at that. I don't want to say he's at a fork in the road, but he's got some Mookie in a way I could understand that because this was a guy who just made he got a huge contract. Obviously. And, ownership was we're not going to do that big of a deal. So in a way I could understand that, even though I would have loved to have kept Mookie, but these aren't players that are going to get Mookie kind of money. So it'll be really interesting to see where he goes with this. I think it's a very important offseason. So we'll have to wait and see.
Interesting offseason.
Yeah. It's because the thing is the Red Sox are still a good team. It's not like they're going into some kind of a rebuild mode or anything. They're still can put a competitive team on the field next year. But when it comes to other aspects of the team, let's talk about the injuries. There were actually a lot of injuries this year. A lot of freak injuries too. They ranked 11th in injuries or guys on the IL this year. The big guys offensively, Kike Hernandez, Trevor Story, we mentioned. Kike, I actually feel like that was a bigger loss than it might have seemed. He's always been a guy. The postseason he had last year was just ridiculous. He's been known for that. Yeah, I went to game 2 in Tampa, and my goodness, that the show that he put on there, my God, I think they won that 14-2, or I can't remember the score. But that guy was insane in the playoffs last year. But with him in the regular season, he never puts up those kind of numbers in the regular season. But what he really brings to the table are those intangibles, the clubhouse character. He's a funny guy. He's a guy that the players, they rally around this guy. He's almost like a clubhouse leader in a way, just because of his personality. He's a goofy guy. When you think of Kike, he was away for quite a bit this year with a hip flexor strain. Coming from, someone like you that's been with a ton of different teams, how important is a guy like Kike Hernandez to a team, you think?
Well, like you said, he's a winning type player. You put him in a playoff situation, the best always comes out of that guy. Yeah. When he was with the Dodgers, the game that he had in Chicago, 3 home runs in Chicago. Same thing here in Boston. He's one of those players, if you can get him to play that somewhat close to that during the regular season, I mean, you're talking about a steal right there. Yeah. And they got him for an extra year. They just extended him for another year. Yeah. So I like that move. I like the fact that he's going to be there. He's a clubhouse guy. Everyone seems to like him. He's funny, like you said. He
Yeah.
keeps people loose, and you have to be loose. In 162 games during the course of a season, you have to find that one or two guys on the team that's just going to relax. Don't let anything bother them.
Yeah.
And that's Kike. And the injury definitely hurt.
Yeah.
From the beginning of the season. I mean, you're talking about 30 games or so that he missed.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
From your leadoff spot. And then
Yep.
when you come back after missing that amount of time, you got to find your rhythm and everything else. And it's not going to be the same thing. It's not like coming out of spring training. Because when you come off the IL, they're throwing you right back in there depending on how many days you go down for a minor league stint.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And to me, I'm hoping for obviously some good health next year. And he sets the tone, not just with the bat, but, like we've said, he sets the tone with just the way he goes about things.
Sure.
And however, the big issue, we didn't have a lot of injuries when it came to the offensive side, the position player side. A lot of injuries to the pitching this year. Sale, yeah, we all know about the whole Chris Sale thing, but we had Nathan Eovaldi. Walker's been great, but he was out for a whole month. Hill, Tanner Houck, he's got the back thing going on. Garrett Whitlock just had getting surgery on his hip. Matt Barnes just never really got it together this year, and he was out for a little while. Strom was a big part of that bullpen. Sure. A lot of injuries this year. And I think in the end, that kind of showed the lack of depth in the organization. And that's why I think they still need to stay the course, and they need to keep adding and adding and adding wherever they can, especially on the pitching side. Sure. We've had other guys like Cutter Crawford, Josh Winkowski come up this year who, they've helped with spot starts, but they're not going to be these game changer kind of guys. I think Connor Siebold starting tonight, not really like a game changer kind of a guy. I think in the end, the amount of injuries that there were, it just really exposed, the organization when it came to just how much pitching. Yeah, they've definitely got some guys on the position player side of things when it comes to talent, but I still want them to be trying to add more pitching. What were just your thoughts on the pitching this year, especially with the injuries?
Well, when you talk about depth, you're talking about, that's why it's so important for you not to deplete your minor league system. You don't want to go out and get a guy that's going to cost 3 or 4 of your top prospects. Okay. You don't need that. Right now, they're in the right place, a good place where they can, they got a lot of good depth at the A ball and AA levels. Okay. And then all of a sudden you have 2 or 3 guys. That Mata kid in AAA, that pitcher, he is phenomenal. He's going to be a good one.
He just had a good game the other day. He struck out double-digit guys, I believe.
And that's exactly the kind of guy other organizations are going to look to get. Okay, when you're talking about trading off a guy, who are they going to get? They're going to want to get those top prospects. So they did the right thing this year. Didn't get rid of any of the core of the minor league players. But you're absolutely right. You have to continue to add on just for that depth because, of course, you're going to have guys throughout the course of a season, 162 games, that are going to get injured. So you do want to have someone on the bench or at AAA that can come in, spot start for a few starts as a regular player, come in and give you 10, 12 games and don't miss a beat. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
And, we're mentioning here some of these younger guys, and, we have a Brian Mata who just came back from Tommy John this year, and he's right back to what he was doing with the organization prior. 19 games this year, 18 starts, a 2.49 ERA. Man, should just go back to that last start that he had. It was, he had 10 strikeouts over 5 1/3. I mean, he's looking really good. This is a guy that could definitely compete for a rotation spot next year. Someone like Brandon Walter really shot up through the system this year. Taking a look at his overall numbers, a 3.59 ERA over 11 starts. In AAA, he definitely got knocked around. I think his season ended short with something going on with his arm. I can't fully remember, but you're starting to see some pitching come together. Someone like a Chris Murphy as well wasn't too bad in the organization this year. They did part ways with Jay Groom when it came to that Padres trade with Eric Hosmer, but you just didn't have enough this year when it came to the pitching. Unfortunately, like the Dodgers and the Rays, they can just dip in their farm system whenever they want and get this picture or that picture. But the Red Sox aren't at that level yet, and they're still, like we just said, they're still trying to add that depth in the organization. I think that's a big key that people overlook a lot. I think when it comes to a championship winning team, it's not just 25 guys. It ends up being like a good 35 guys, because you got all these guys in the minor leagues, those ones that come up, with the Astros. That's why I'm actually pretty impressed with the Astros. I know this is the Red Sox podcast here, but they have not had like an amazing farm over the last few years, but they've just produced so many good players. I mean, obviously, they've had just really, really good players come out of their system. Sure. But, like this year, you had Hunter Brown come up for them, but when it came to just overall pitching, they've had these same guys that the homegrown talent, for years. So the Red Sox, like I've mentioned, like Dodgers and Rays, they're not quite in that spot. So that's why, I'm very impressed with an organization like the Astros. But when it comes to these championship winning teams, they always have not just good major league teams, but pretty strong farms at the same time. So anyway, but definitely the injuries on the pitching side, that definitely hurt the Red Sox this year. I absolutely think that. But let's go to, I think we can we've already pretty much talked about when it comes to trading off prospects, the trade deadline. I think we can both agree there just wasn't really a whole lot like the Red Sox could do. They could have, but I just don't think when you're looking, 3-5 years down the road, it wouldn't have been the right move. Do you feel like maybe they could have done a little bit more, or were you pretty content with what they did?
Well, you definitely could have done more. Anyone you could say that, but you don't want to lose your top guys. Like I said earlier, that's one thing you don't want to lose. If you're another team, another scout, I did a lot of scouting. So you're talking about you going to the AA, AAA levels, looking for those top guys.
Yeah.
Especially if you want one of our premier starters, you want our number 2, number 3 starter, you're going to have to give up 2 top prospects.
Yeah.
And
look what happened with Luis Castillo. It took, my goodness, they had to really they had to give up Noelvi Marte, and they gave up going blank on their other top infield prospect, going completely blank, but they had to give up 2 top prospects and then a couple other guys as well. Now I almost understand why the Yankees didn't pull the trigger for Luis Castillo, because the Mariners just completely blew everyone out of the water with that offer. And actually, one thing I actually do think happened at the deadline, and Bloom even said it himself. He said he felt like there were more moves that he would have liked to have made, but he felt like the market was just slow. Look at the Juan Soto deal. That really held up a lot of things. If you remember that Soto deal didn't happen until that morning. Once that deal happened, you started seeing all these other deals, come into place, because it just really held up the market. It was a
domino effect. You wait for that big domino to fall.
Right.
And then everything else. Right.
Yeah, because you want to, maybe you want to get the Padres involved on like some kind of a deal. The Red Sox made the deal with the Padres, with Hosmer and getting some prospects involved as well. They're trying to get a Juan Soto deal done. So the Red Sox were being held up on that, and that holds up something else and something else. So they could have maybe added another bullpen guy, maybe a depth guy for the rotation, someone that can, maybe add some innings. I think Bloom was out there as much as he could. I just think time was just working against him in that when it came to just getting deals done. But in the end, I was pretty happy with it. You added a couple of really good pieces. If we actually go down the list here, and Manuel Valdez was one guy that they added. And this guy's had a really good season in the minor leagues. Kind of an all-around sort of an ability where he can hit for power. He's got some speed. He can hit for average. He can play multiple positions.
Did he go to AAA? Did he go to Worcester?
Yeah, I believe he's in Worcester right now.
Yeah.
Not doing as hot as he was in the AAA when he was with the Astros, but coming over to the Woo Sox, not quite as hot. He's hit, for some power. He's been driving in some runs, but hey, new organization. I can understand. Maybe it takes a little time, but and they got Wilyer Abreu in that deal as well. He's a really good on base guy, a .399 on base this year for Portland, and overall across his entire season. So they've added really nice pieces. In the end, I just don't think the Red Sox just really they could have done much more. I don't think there would have been any other kind of a deal that would have, saved their season. I think could you have added something? Sure. But I think in the end, the trade deadline, it is what it is. But I'm just glad we got some
Absolutely.
prospects out of it.
Well, you
But,
got prospects out of it. And then, of course, this offseason, I think the Red Sox are going to be one of those teams out there that's going to be out there for the free agents. You know, you got to make you got to make some moves, even if it's
absolutely.
maybe one starter, a couple of bullpen pieces, something like that.
Yeah, and you know Bloom, he's always looking at, I always like to say Bloom, the way he likes to operate, you know, you go on Amazon, you're looking for, you know, whatever, a chair. It gives you the top the top recommended product. Bloom is going to just completely past that. He's going to go down the list and he's going to look for something a lot cheaper, but made with the same materials. It's going to give you the same product basically for a lot cheaper. That's what Bloom likes to do. He likes to go find these guys that maybe on the surface, those numbers aren't great. Like Nick Pivetta, when he got Nick Pivetta a couple of years ago in the Brandon Workman deal during the 2020 season, everyone looked at Pivetta's numbers and they're like, well, who the heck is this guy? He's sure. Terrible. But if you looked, he had a really good curveball. He had just good deeper numbers. And then, you know, he's had his ups and downs this year. Really good first half. Besides that first month, he's kind of dipped a little in the second half. But I mean, everyone feels like everyone's.
Well, he's had an excellent track record in getting players like that, like you said, not that premier guy, but a guy that can definitely help in the organization. And Nick Pivetta's done that, you know, very well. He's just, you know, he was just a little up and down this year, but you know, I expect him to bounce back big time next year.
I also just think there was you know, and not like he doesn't enjoy it. Nick Pivetta is a gamer, but I do feel like a lot of pressure was put on him. You know, it really just showed the lack of a rotation. I've always thought of Pivetta as like a 3 in a rotation. I've never looked at him like an ace. He pitched like one at times this year. He put the team on his back quite a bit, but it really, you know, when you go deep into a season and these teams are starting to come together like the Astros, who have just been nuts this year in the American League, the Yankees getting it together here at the end of the season, you know, the Rays, Blue Jays, obviously, you know, you can't do it alone. He's got to have some of these other guys, you know, pick up the slack for him a little bit, you know,
sure.
And the Red Sox, they just didn't have a lot of these other options in the end. So yeah, but definitely for next year. Oh, and again, this will definitely be another episode, but just to quickly touch on it. Yeah, I do think they need some starting pitching. I definitely think you got some young guys down here that you definitely can get excited about. And another guy we haven't even talked about, Brian Bale. How could we not talk about Brian Bale? He's actually had some he's had some really promising aspects of his game come out this year.
Yep.
Maybe the surface numbers don't look all that great, but there's a lot to like about him. You know, what are your initial thoughts on Brian Bale?
Well, you talk about surface numbers. Okay, let's eliminate the first 2 to 3 starts he had in Fenway Park or in Boston. Eliminate those 3 starts, okay? You know, first of all, you got to get acclimated to the big league level. You're a young kid. There's a lot of expectations on you, first of all, and everyone is watching this, you know, number 1 prospect, okay?
Yeah.
So there was a lot of pressure on him coming up. But since then, man, he has shown that he has 3 quality pitches. And when you can have a young guy coming up from AAA, AA, whichever they come from, and step in and have 3 quality pitches, a good fastball, 97 to 98 miles per hour. You got a nasty slider. And that changeup, I tell you what, that changeup kind of puts you in the mind of a Pedro. You don't want to put name. You don't want to throw that name out there just, you know, to be throwing it out. But that changeup, his arm motion, the way he releases the ball and the movement on that particular pitch, man, I love it. And that's one guy. He's definitely going to make some moves.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And when we look at his numbers, what I mean by the surface numbers, you know, and like you said, you can pretty much just throw out those first couple of starts. An ERA of 4.39, but I'm looking at the FIP, a 2.97. If anyone here, you know, watching along is not really familiar with FIP, basically what it is, it's basically ERA, but it takes the defense out of it. It takes the batting average on balls in play out of it. It really just looks at the strikeouts, the walks, the hit by pitches, the home runs allowed, the aspects of the game a pitcher can control. And a 2.97 FIP is an extremely good number. I think he's got a bright future.
He does.
The numbers show it. The eye test shows it. I think it's just a matter of putting it together. And if you look at, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and compare Brian Bale to Pedro Martinez. No one can be Pedro Martinez, but it's cool how you can see those aspects of his game, similar deliveries, the similar release points, a little smaller in stature, but that's just what made Pedro so exciting. And when you see something like that with Brian Bale, you can't help but not think of Pedro because it's right there in front of you. But he passes that eye test, and he has like this bit of a swagger to him. Do you feel like you've seen that with him? Like he's just a gamer?
I mean, he gets the ball, gets right back on the mound, and he's ready to fire it again. And anytime he throws a strike, he's dancing around up there. Once he forms that rhythm, I mean, the guy, like I told you, those 3 top pitches that he has, once he finds that rhythm in and out, up and down, all 4 quadrants of the plate, man, he is going to be something to be reckoned with.
Absolutely. And when you look at the other side, if we get away from the mound here, I mean, everyone was excited about this guy, but Tristan Cassis, to me, obviously, not a lot of sample size here, 18 games, but this guy hitting a home run off of Cole the other night, or the week or whatever it was, and he just looks like he belongs. The guy's is massive. Have you stood next to him by any chance? Have you
you know what? I saw him at the ballpark. I didn't get a chance to get right up on him, but I saw him at first base. And the guys that were coming up next to him, I'm like, geez, this guy, he's 6'5", 250 pounds, and just looks massive at the plate, but he has a great eye. He's not up there swinging at everything. Like you said, it's not a sample size. Those 18 games, okay, all right, it's 18 games. He's coming in late in the season. I want to see him in spring training. I want to see him break with the club. That's when you see the real player, okay? Not a guy that's coming in and the expectations are all there. Everyone say, okay, here he is. He's coming in, Tristan Cassis, But let me tell you something. He has what it takes. And I love each and every one of his interviews. He's real down to earth. Yeah. He's not letting the game get too big for him. And that makes a player right there. For me, when you can get a guy that just can control his heartbeat and go out there and play the game and don't let the highs affect him, don't let the lows affect him. Because baseball, it's one of those things. You're gonna be up here sometimes, and you're gonna be down there. You have to find that middle part. You know what I'm saying? You have to find that comfort zone, man. And he has that to me. He has that swag. He has that personality. I like it.
Yeah, absolutely. He, in a way, talking about how Brian Bale reminds us a little of Pedro. Mm-hmm. He almost gives me some Matt Olson kind of vibes, and maybe even a little bit of Kyle Schwarber as well. He just has that I don't want to say girth like Kyle Schwarber. He just has that presence in the box, and then Matt Olson, the guy's just phenomenal out there with the Braves, and he really just gives me those kind of vibes. I'm really excited about him in the future. I'm glad that the Red Sox have these 2 guys on both sides of the ball that, they can contribute next year. And I definitely think, I don't know. When I saw Cassis hit just a shot off of Cole, that to me, I'm like, all right, we're good. We're in good hands here. There's a lot to be excited about with the Red Sox. And while it has been a disappointing year, it wasn't last year was fun. It almost felt like we got a little spoiled almost last year. If you remember, the first half was really what helped get them to the postseason. That second half wasn't as fun as the first half of the regular season. Remember, they had to fight their way into the playoffs, the last game of the season.
Sure.
And then they went on that run, in the postseason. And, in the end, I think we came into this year, and to me, I didn't have the Red Sox making the playoffs this year. It pained me to do that, but I gotta stay unbiased over here, and those are just my thoughts. And I saw a good team. I just didn't see enough because I knew we were not there yet as an organization. You hit lightning in a bottle last year. You made it work with what you had, and I think also Cora coming back last year brought that energy to the team. I gotta ask this. Are you a big superstition guy?
I have been.
So with Cora, the big thing with Cora this year was the beard. All right. So what do you think? Does he keep the beard? Does he just not keep the beard? What do you think?
Facial hair. I don't think
I'm big on my facial hair, man. I couldn't shave, man.
I really don't think that applies when you're talking about that. but Alex Cora, he's one of those guys, he's going to do what's best for the team, what he thinks is the best for the team.
Yeah.
But you know what? He shaved it off at one point.
They were doing good. They were doing good, man. When he shaved, it was like, all right, cool. Alex is back. All right.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
But
I tell you what.
Yeah, just joking over here. But it in the end, it is what it is this year. When you saw Bloom take over this organization, when we saw Betts go to LA, you knew they were a team that were in transition. 2018 was amazing. Last year was a lot of fun, but we're looking 3-5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. You want that sustained success. And in the end, I'm excited for the offseason. And any last thoughts on this season at all from you? Any last little tidbits from you?
Well, in any game, any profession, it's hard to keep your core players. But in this situation, I think it's something that you really have to do with Xander Bogaerts and Rafael Devers. You build around those two guys. You just can't have one guy in baseball. You have to have, a couple of guys on your team that you can put them, they're like pillars of your team. You can just automatically know they're going to be in the lineup every day. Those are the two guys they're going to be out there. Okay. And then, you have ideally you would love to have had Tristan Cassis and Bale come up start next year. You'd never want to see these guys, reaching into the minor league system unless they're just phenomenal players and they earn that way to come up. But you want to see these guys get their at-bats. Of course, Cassis, he was hurt this year early, missed a lot of games.
That too.
Yeah. That's one of those things. You want to see a minor league player get X amount of at-bats in the minor league system. Yeah. That way you can be comfortable bringing them up, knowing that any situation, they're going to be okay. Yeah. Okay. You don't want to rush anyone, because when you rush a player that's had a lot of success in the minor leagues, the minute he has trouble, you wonder if that's going to affect him mentally, because it has happened in the past. Yeah. You definitely don't want that with one of your top guys. But overall, I think this offseason is definitely going to play a major part in what the Red Sox, which direction they're going to go. And we'll see that early, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think I think we're going to see typical Chaim Bloom as well. He's still going to keep making those moves where you're bringing in prospects. He's going to make some head scratcher kind of moves. I remember last year when they did the Hunter Renfroe trade, everyone's like, what was that? What are we doing? I love Jackie Bradley Jr., but what are we doing here? But people weren't really looking deeper into it. So, and it was also too, when you look at the money side of it too, he was trying to take advantage of that Hunter Renfroe value. He was
this is what I thought. When you got rid of Schwarber, okay, when he left, decided to go to Philly, I thought Bobby Dahlbeck had earned that right for the second half that he had. He had an unbelievable second half of the season. And I thought that was going to propel him to where he needed to be. Yeah. But obviously it affected him differently. He came back this season, didn't have the kind of season that he wanted to have, of course. And players, we go through that. You go through that. You have to learn how to deal with success. You have to learn how to deal with failure as well. Yeah. But, it's just one of those things that didn't work out. But, at that moment, you thought that was the right move. And I thought it was the right move as well.
Right. And another thing I think, and funny, we didn't bring up Dahlbeck. There's so many things going on with this team this year. I think what happened was with him, I think pitchers, they just found a weakness with him. And I think they really exposed it with him this year. The strikeouts were high last year, but they really kind of, they got up there this year with him. He was definitely striking out a lot this year. I'm hoping for him, he can make those adjustments I think that could be a bounce back player candidate next year. The potential's there. He's a good kid. He's a hard worker too. I think he's going to have himself a good off season. I definitely could see him having a bounce back year next year. We'll have to wait and see how they go with that. But in the end, I definitely agree with you when it comes to at least making your best effort to bring back Bogaerts. He is a free agent. He should be a free agent. I'm sure he will opt out of that contract, but I hope they make their best effort to bring him back. If he ends up going elsewhere, then okay. But I definitely think you need to make an effort to sign Devers. My thoughts on Devers, I've said this on my channel now for a little while. If you're not going to sign the guy, if you're not going to put forth a full effort to bring him back, I think you need to explore looking into a trade with him, because at this point, his value is as high as it could be before he hits free agency.
Sure.
I'm not saying you should trade him, but I'm saying if you're not going to really realistically try and get him signed up to an extension, the last time we heard about it is they were far apart. So I don't know. I think that could be a bit of a sleeper story of this offseason. What happens with that extension? Because he is going into next year. Basically, he's in limbo a little bit.
Yeah.
Because people in Boston want him back, but gotta wait and see what they end up doing. I'm excited for this offseason, honestly.
Man, it's a lot on the table, isn't it? A lot on the table.
It's almost, I get more excited after the bad seasons, because obviously you want the team to get better. So,
sure.
And coming off of last year, you're like, okay, cool. What can we, what little adjustments
can
we
build
make
onto this? Yeah.
Yeah. Now it's like, all right, okay, bad season, let's go. So I'm glad we have made it to the end. And, but before we do get out of here, what are some of your, besides the Red Sox this year, what are some other things that you've been paying attention to just in the game this year? Any other teams or anything that stood out to you in Major League Baseball this year?
Yeah, I paid a lot of attention to the Giants this year.
Great
year last year.
Yeah. Similar Red Sox,
Very similar. I mean, same situation, some injuries. The expectation was there, of course, for this year. And of course, they did not have the same type of season.
Yeah.
A lot of injuries. Brandon Belt was hurt, of course. A couple other guys. But, yeah, it was just one of those years there also. And, everyone's trying to take down the Yankees and the Dodgers, Those are the teams that they don't even seem to have any kind of budget. They just go out and get who the hell they want.
Yeah. The Giants are going to be, I think, a team to look out for in this offseason. Everyone wants to look at Aaron Judge on the Giants. And that's also another thing. Thank God we did not have Aaron Judge tie Maris off of us in this past series.
Ooh.
But man, he's got to hit it eventually.
I got to ask you this.
Yeah.
What do you think? We're talking free agents. We're talking about trades and stuff. What do you think the Angels are going to do with Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout? I mean, with the new owner coming in, as a new owner coming in, you're going to have to make a move. Boom, right off the bat.
I mean, it's easy from my point of view because I'm looking at simply just baseball. Like I'm looking at the stats. I'm looking at all that stuff. Okay. Ohtani is such a different animal because you got bobbleheads that you're selling. You got T-shirts that you're selling. You got all this marketing with Ohtani. Like, it's just so much more that comes into play with him. Mm-hmm. From a baseball point of view, I think the Angels stink as an organization, and they should cash in on that guy's value while they can. But I don't know. They just don't. They don't. The reason I say that is because they don't have a lot going on in that farm. It's one of the worst ranked farms right now. If they had a better farm, I probably wouldn't be saying this. But to me, from a baseball point of view, that guy will bring in some juicy prospects for you.
Oh, big time. And don't forget Trout now. He's
and that too. He's just had 37th home run the other night. And I don't know, man. The Angels, to me, they just stink. And it's too bad because I want these guys to – I was actually hoping Ohtani maybe could have been like if Soto didn't go to the Padres, maybe Ohtani could have been an option for them. Ooh. Darvish and Ohtani in the playoffs, that would have been fun. But I don't know. The Angels are really interesting. I don't think they're going to go the route of going after someone like Aaron Judge. I don't think that's the way they need to go. I don't know. It's with new ownership too coming in. I don't know what they're going to do. You know, could you take the Steve Cohen approach and be like, all right, get everyone, but are they really in that kind of a position? I feel like the Mets were in a bit of a better position when Cohen came in. The Angels, though, they just don't have a lot of pitching. They just, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a lot to look forward to this offseason. Huh?
Just stay tuned.
Yeah, I think one more thing, on the way out, we have heard maybe Aaron Judge as a Red Sox. Maybe. What do you think of that idea? What would you spend the money for Aaron Judge?
Well, the thing about it, you're not going to give him 8 to 10 years.
Yeah.
So you might as well look at a 4 or 5 year deal, about $50 million a year. That's what's going to lure the guy in.
Yeah.
Because he can't expect to get a 10-year deal. Not at
right.
What is he now? 32, 31,
yeah,
32?
31, 32 now. I mean, look at Cora last year. He couldn't land that big one,
Right. And that's exactly what they're looking at now.
Yeah.
Those 10-year deals, I mean, they're going to be up unless you're 20, 22 years old.
Yeah.
Something like that. But still, I mean, yeah, that's something, you can never say never. I never thought I would see Wade Boggs in a Yankee uniform, Roger Clemens in a Yankee uniform.
Yeah.
So,
I remember when Johnny Damon went to the Yankees, man.
Yeah.
Now it's our turn to take an outfielder from the Yankees.
Let's do it.
Just saying. I will say this. Aaron Judge, if he's hitting 60 homers with the Yankees this year, that dude's going to hit 80 with the Red Sox. With that monster, that'd be ridiculous. I mean,
but he has power all over every field.
Right.
That
dude would just destroy the monster. I mean, it's just interesting. There was I forget which reporter asked him after they had played the Red Sox, and he basically just said, we'll wait and see, kind of a thing. That's the normal talk that these soon-to-be free agents always like to say. But Ellis, man, this has been a fun first episode. This has been a lot of fun. Again, it's an honor to have you on the show.
Thank you.
A big fan of yours and your career, and everyone here is very excited to have you on the
Honor
show.
To be here. Thanks.
Yeah, man. I'm excited. I'm glad you're coming on to the show now. We've talked off of here, saying, we've got the off season coming up. I'm kind of the one to say here, I love keeping up with the game every day. I love looking at the box scores. I love watching the game, but there's something about off-season rumors that really get me going, man. I love it.
The rumors, I
love the rumors because you can just bite into them, because you can kind of you can put a fantasy team together. You can kind of just play around with it,
Yeah.
The off-season is a lot of fun, and I'm glad you're coming onto the show now, especially an important off-season for the Red Sox coming up. Unfortunately, a disappointing year, but we can at least look forward to this off-season coming up. So
there it is.
But next episode, I say, we can definitely take a look at we got the playoffs coming up. I mean, even though our season's done, we can still look forward to the playoffs. I'm sure you got a lot of thoughts on that. I mean, who would have thought the Cleveland Guardians, man? I'll tell you.
I tell you what, I mean, when they came in to play Boston, that was one of the things I talked about.
Yeah.
How aggressive that team is. They're young. They don't strike out. They steal bases. They play solid defense, and their bullpen is top notch.
Oh, it's so good. Clase at the back end. Oh,
wow.
But I mean, the guy that's just running the ship, man, he just knows what he's doing. Good old Tito Francona, man. He gets amazing,
the best out of the players.
He's the best, man. Absolutely love the guy. I'm glad the guy's got some good health going right now. I'm glad he's still involved. It's funny, in the offseason, I looked at the Guardians, coming into this year. I'm like, this is not a bad team. You got Bieber up there. You got some other pictures that can be serviceable. I love the Stephen Kwan kid.
Yeah.
Just there was a lot to like about the team. The bullpen was really good last year. I don't think people realized that. It was a good team coming into this year. I'm shocked with the White Sox. They just completely fell apart. If I were to, we could sit here and talk for hours, but one more question if I were to ask you, what do you think happened with the White Sox this year? Because there were injuries. There's injuries with every team.
Sure.
They had just good talent. I don't know. Do you think La Russa was the right fit? I don't know. Do you think it was a clubhouse thing, or what do you think?
You know what? There's so many ways that could have gone. People talk about, was La Russa the right fit? Was he too old to be in there and this and that? No, I mean, the guy knows baseball. Players respect him. He puts the lineup out there. He has a great relationship with the players. I just think that was one of those situations where, you got all this talent on one team, but they don't play well together.
Yeah.
They
no
had
chemistry
last year. The chemistry just wasn't there.
Yeah. And we know chemistry from '04. Like,
Oh yeah,
that chemistry from '04, that team is just, you just loved that team, man. Like, we
dude.
could
Let me
talk
tell
here
you,
'04 Red Sox for hours, but
before we get out of here, I just have to say that '04 team. Let me tell you, you talking about guys going to dinner together, drinking together, laughing, playing cards on the plane. It
Yeah.
was just everyone liked each other. There was no animosity. There was nothing.
Yeah.
It was just a joy to be on that team and to be around those guys. And I've been on several teams around the league. I've never been on a team that close and having that much fun, other than the '93 White Sox when I was there. Those two teams, to me, top notch.
Yeah. I look at the '04 Red Sox. I feel like I don't hear a lot of people talk about this, but I feel like the '04 Red Sox was like a perfect storm. You had talent, you had chemistry, and you also just had a chip on your shoulder too, because you had the evil Empire Yankees sitting right there, and that team was just as happy as I am about the '04 Red Sox. That Yankee team in '04 was just stupid good. Like, I don't understand that. That's what made it even better. It was just, it wasn't that you just beat the Yankees. You beat one of the, I will argue that if the Yankees won that series, they would have won the World Series. It was done. That was the World Series. It was the Red Sox and the Yankees.
If you look at some of those players, Sheffield, Ruben Sierra,
and Ruben Sierra was one of the lesser players too.
Exactly. Like with that career, dude, it was unbelievable. That was one of those teams where, when they had us down 3 games to nothing, you could just see the confidence in them. And all of a sudden they started chirping off, chirping at the newspaper, talking about the guys over on the other side of the field, the Red Sox, of course.
Yeah.
And they got, we got a little whiff of that and be like, whoa, wait a minute now. You're going to disrespect. You got us down, but we're not out. And I tell you what, that was a hell of a turnaround.
Is there any stories that if you're able to quickly come up with anything on the top of your head, maybe that no one's heard of before? Do you have anything fun from that season that, like, I don't know, a little tidbit or anything that you can remember from that year? Maybe you need some time to think about it.
I don't need any time. We got so many good stories on that team, man. Kevin Millar was one of the funniest characters I would
love to just grab a beer with that guy. Like,
you'd love it. He is unbelievable when you're talking about, and it's not something that he tries to make up. It's just off the top of his head, which is true. Yeah. Everything that he says is true, but it's just the way he let it out. Yeah. He just have you on the floor in stitches rolling.
Yeah.
But he would do so many things on a daily basis, man, that when the first day of spring training, we coming out stretching as a team. He says, "This is the year. This is our year." And everyone's looking at him like, what are we talking about here? We're going to win the World Series this year. I mean, he knew from the beginning. He put that thought in our heads from day one.
Yeah.
And when you can have a player that, puts that in your head and you start believing in yourselves as a team, as an organization, the belief is where it all comes from. And he made us believe.
Yeah, absolutely. You could feel it was just watching him on the camera, like just on the TV. You felt that energy with him. He was one of my favorites. I loved Trot Nixon. He was my favorite player. Yeah. I had my red Trot Nixon jersey shirt forever. Like, that was my favorite shirt. It eventually just tore at one point, and I was sad, and I had to get rid
heartbroken.
of it. But he was my favorite. I still remember spring training the next year. You remember Dodgertown, right? Yep. Yeah, I lived right near Dodgertown growing up in Vero Beach, and so every time the Red Sox came, I was always at Dodgertown. I would skip school and everything. I remember Trot Nixon standing outside the clubhouse, just whatever. And I was like, Trot. And he waved. I'm like, oh my God, that's like the best day ever. Trot Nixon just waved at me. I actually do have a story for you. Obviously you got plenty, but I do have one that I love telling this story. You didn't play with Coco Crisp, but you remember Coco Crisp.
Yeah.
So I think it was the first year when the Red Sox acquired him. So it was 2006. So Johnny Damon had just left. So Coco was now the new fan favorite in Boston. So everyone loved Coco Crisp. I was at Dodgertown. I was by myself. I remember my dad just dropped me off for the day, and I'm going to get like a hot dog or something. And there was this one spot. I don't know if you can remember Dodgertown, like the visitor clubhouse. Like if you're walking along the field.
It was a heck of a walk from the clubhouse to the field.
Yeah. And there was like this one little spot between the clubhouse and the stands where like people could go up to the fence. And like it was right before you would walk into the visitors clubhouse. And people would stand there for like the autographs. It was like this literally like maybe not even 10 feet, like just a little spot. I'm walking and all of a sudden I look to my left and here's Coco Crisp just standing there talking to an elderly woman. And I'm like, there's no one else around that sees this. And I'm 15 years old at the time. Now, I had no concern over this. This lady was probably like 85, 90, just this wonderful looking lady.
Right.
And he's just taking the time to talk to her. I didn't even care. I ran up and I said, Coco, can I have your autograph? And he gave me the death stare of a lifetime. And I will never forget that look. So if you can somehow get me to talk to Coco Crisp so I can apologize for that, that would be great.
Oh, yeah.
I would love that.
That's
my favorite story. I'll tell you. Huh?
We'll get him on the show.
Yeah, I got to apologize to him, man, because that guy hates me. He will remember me. He's gonna be like, you're that guy. You're that guy. Yeah, I was talking to little old Martha over here. A nice conversation. Right. But we got plenty more to talk about here in the coming weeks.
Yep.
But Ellis, man, thank you again for coming on. It's an honor to have you here, my friend. And,
thank you, buddy.
Everyone, thank you for coming out for episode 20. That was another milestone, the 20th episode. Big 20. So, but everyone, if you can, on the way out, hit the like button for me. And also don't forget about our sponsors for today's show. Bet Online. Use the code BLEAV50. Gives you a 50% welcome bonus. Don't forget, we are partners with SeatGeek as well. $20 off. Use my code HYDE, especially with the last, 10, 12, whatever days there is left of the season. And also works for any football games as well. Don't forget, you can use it for anything on there when it comes to tickets, concerts, whatever. And don't forget about Prize Picks. Use my code GINGER, and you get a 100% deposit match. So, all right, everyone. We're out of here. We'll see you next time for episode 21. Have yourself a great night. We'll talk to you next time.